YouTubers and space detectives, we have today a couple of things to look at on Google Earth and, well, to be more specific, Google Mars, I should say. Before we start, let me give a bit of credit here to William Benton for bringing this up on my Mars Magazine site. Here's Mars Magazine. If you haven't signed up already, come along. It's totally free. And you will get a free ArtAlienTV app here. Click on the link here and it will take you to the download page here. And you can choose either Android or HTML5, or depending on what device you have, you can use this on your desktop, the HTML5. Just by clicking on that, and you get this, which you can then use. So that's really cool. So check it out. It's an extensive and powerful space research app, and it's got everything on here that I use on a daily basis to make these videos and do space research and anomaly research. Okay, it's got all the links. I've even got all the sort of software links as well, free software links that I use, video software, imaging software, all that kind of stuff. It can all be linked to here, and it's all free. So, and there's no adverts on this, so it's not going to bug you. And this object has skidded along and ended up here on the surface of Mars. Okay, I would show you this on Google Earth in a minute. But there's also this this other thing that someone else posted. Chad Myers posted this a couple of days ago. On the 18th, yeah. This very large looking metal object. Now, this was weird because this is a really bright sort of blue colour. Now, if that was ice, I wouldn't have thought it would be that colour for a start. Ice doesn't tend to go that blue. I mean, this may not be the true colour we're seeing here, but to me, when you look at this in context, you'll see what I'm saying. It does actually look like a large metal object that's actually come in at a quite a low angle and scorched the surface of Mars and ended up in this crater, leaving a big burn mark. So now, I'm not saying this is necessarily a spaceship, but you could call it a UFO because it's unidentified. We don't positively know what it is. So that was interesting. So check it out on the page here, because there's some interesting comments by people here, and people are sort of trying to work out what these things are. This is what we do on these channels and pages. This is alien detective work we're doing here on other planets, and often you get to the truth by cooperating with other people and trying to find out what we're actually looking at here. So without further ado, let's go on to here. The huge metal object, this one, is this is the blue shiny one I just showed you. Let's just click on that and it will take us in. And you can see this huge scorch mark. Now this scorch mark stretches for something like 10 miles from here to about here somewhere. It kind of fades out a bit there. So what that looks like to me is that this object came in probably a meteor or a very large metallic lump of material, came in at quite a low angle, and as it came in here, it scorched the surface of the planet here and burnt it. And as it got closer, it burnt it even more. Obviously, this thing would have been a massive ball of flame. And I don't think it actually caused this crater, although I could be wrong. The epicenter of this crater would be here, in the middle, because it's an almost round crater. Now that crater has been caused by a different impact from an earlier epoch. And it was quite heavily eroded. It doesn't look very like a fresh crater. It's a bit too smooth. And this thing has just kind of ploughed into the side of it here and ended up kind of slumping down into the crater by the looks of it. I mean, this thing is really big. I mean, I've got some clips of it, which I'll show you in a minute. But there are other burnt marks in the area, which also may have been part of it. Now, if this was a large meteor burning up in the atmosphere, parts of it may have shot off or broken off and then landed here. So this looks like a multi-impact here area. And you've got these huge burn marks here. And these are miles and miles long. I'll just get the ruler out just to show you how big this thing is. It's about 1.6 miles across or something, 1.54. Yeah, it's over 1.5 miles across, the blue part of it here. In fact, if I do that again, it might actually be bigger than that. It depends on how you actually do it. Let's take it from there. Now, this may come out a bit wider than that. So it's over 1.6 miles wide, and some of it may be buried also. So it probably comes right out to here, and it may have been backfilled slightly by erosion. So I don't know how long this has been here. Now, this scorch mark would indicate that this is less than it's probably less than 100,000 years. I don't know. It depends on the actual makeup of the ground and what type of material, what type of rock and that kind of thing. Because eventually, of course, these burn marks would erode away. But as there's no or very little rain on Mars, that would take a very, very long time indeed. So, I mean, this could have been here a million years, but it could be more recent. But it looks like the area around it is very smooth. Now, of course, this may have been downgraded and obfuscated, this image, like a lot of Mars images are. It could have been smoothed out. This may have been much rougher. But it looks to me like an object that's ended up in this crater that was already there, because if this made a crater, it wouldn't be round, and it certainly wouldn't, the epicenter wouldn't be here. It would be here, of course, and it would be more of an ovoid shape, where the impact would have caused an explosion to sort of go that way. So there we are. I will put some more clips of that in a minute for you to look at, some close-ups, and I'll do some enhancements of them, and I'll show the measurements and stuff like that, because this is pretty cool. Let's just measure that from there to there. I mean, that scorch mark goes on for miles. I mean, that's 12 miles. It depends where you think it ends. It kind of, you can actually see it starting up here and gradually get darker as it came closer, and then sort of hit the edge, almost hit the edge of this crater here, and then kind of slid down by the looks of it. Or it may have even destroyed that edge of the crater partly. Okay, you can actually see where it's come through there. Awesome. So that was really cool. So I'll show some more clips of that in a minute, some enhancements. The second image that we were looking at, that William Benton posted, of the large disc-shaped object, which is not as big as that one. That was over 1.5 miles wide. This thing is quite a lot smaller, but really interesting, because unlike that, this doesn't have a scorch mark, which indicates to me that this object may not have been a meteor at all, or may have struck at a time when the atmosphere wasn't really thick enough for it to heat up as much, so it didn't scorch the ground. Now, obviously, the thicker your atmosphere is, the more friction there is on an object as it comes into the atmosphere from space at very high speed. And obviously, if that's a metallic object, most rock contains all sorts of heavy metals like iron and titanium and all that kind of thing. This gets superheated and causes like a big fireball, and then that will then come in and often break up into smaller pieces. And that will then come in and often will scorch the ground. You can see this physical scorch marks. There aren't any here. Now, either that means this is much older and the scorch marks have eroded away, or it didn't get that hot on entry. This looks more like a disc. Now, when you look at it closely, it's got a pretty neat disc shape. Pretty neat. It's not perfect. It's got a sort of shiny metallic gold look to it, which is very interesting. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of data around it, so we can't really compare it to a lot. It's in a sort of area here, a big blank spot where there's would have been just ice. This is in the North Polar region, by the way, so you can see here when I zoom out how close to the pole we are. But it's not far from all these other things that I published on Google Mars recently. It's not far from those, all these other structures. So it's an interesting area, this. In fact, if you want to see lots of interesting features on Google Mars, this is the area to look at, around this craggy part of the North Pole here. Not the very middle, but around the edge of it. You can see this area. there are millions and millions of structures, and a lot of them are domes that I've touched on. Let's go back to that a minute, because I'm starting to get distracted by other stuff. Let's go back to that. I'll show you a couple of those other things in a minute, because I don't want to take too long here, because there we are. Now, this isn't anywhere near as big as that blue metallic thing that I showed you a minute ago. This is much smaller. It's not even a mile across, it's about 0.8 or something. There we are, 0.8 from there to there. So it's not massive, but what it does have is real symmetry to it. Now, bear in mind that this may have been here for millions of years and may have eroded. It has a really nice circular shape and this rather strange, almost triangular kind of lump on the back of it here. Could this be an entrance? Now, other people have posted videos about similar structures on Mars and said, oh, it's a UFO entrance into the underground Mars. I don't think so. In fact, when you brighten this object, that shadow kind of disappears. It's just a shadow there. It's not an entrance as such. That's a solid lump of rock material by the looks of it. And you've got this long tail as it came in at a low angle, much like the other thing did. Came in at a low angle and skidded here by the looks of it. And as pushed up, you can see where you've got the raised material around it here. Around the edge, you've got this rough material here where it's been raised and pushed as this large disc-shaped thing has come along and skidded, almost like if you were to get a sort of disc-shaped pebble on a muddy beach or something, and then skid it along, and it kind of slides, and then kind of, you know what I mean, pushes up the material. I mean, I would expect there to be more material pushed up around here, actually. It's rather odd, but of course it may have eroded away. So let's also measure that tail on this thing. Let's see how long that tail is. I think it's probably a mile or two long. This part of it, I mean, it depends where you measure it from, of course. I mean, it actually probably starts right back here. So it's probably about a mile. Let's do that again. From there. Let's see how far that goes. So this doesn't look like a burning meteor that hit the surface, because A, it's in a very good condition, the shape of it, and it hasn't left a black scorch mark. And now that line goes right back to here, arguably about here. So it's about a mile. Yeah, it's come in at a low angle and then skidded along. This may well have been underwater, which may explain why there's no scorch marks here. This could have been, as we're near the North Pole here, I would suspect this area was underwater in the past, may well have been. So that may explain why we're not seeing a scorch mark here. This could have hit the water, which could have slowed it down considerably, and then it came in. The water may not have been particularly deep. It may have only been 50 or 100 or 200 foot deep. Don't know. Couldn't tell you. But that may explain why there's no scorch mark here. This may still be a meteor, although very oddly shaped, like a perfect disc with a lump on the back. Now this may have slumped. I mean, if this is largely metallic, it may have partially melted and solidified in that shape as it hit the water. Answers on the postcard, guys. What do you think? Is this actually a spaceship? It's a nice shape. I'll do some clips and enhancements of this. It's very shiny. It looks like gold. It's a very shiny colour. Very interesting. And was it underwater? You've also got this kind of shape around it here. If you look carefully at this whole area, it's almost like the whole area was disturbed. You've got like I mean, when something that large hits the ground, you get a shock wave going through the ground, and if that ground is only semi-solid, as in either sand or mud or whatever, you will get a shock wave, and it kind of looks like there's a shock wave here. Can you see that coming round? And there's another one there. So it caused quite an impact, this thing. There was also another similar thing that I posted years ago, which I'm going to quickly show you, which I called the Black Saucer Citadel. I think I did this video about 4 years ago. I'll put a link to it at the end of this one. This is not an object that's crashed, because there isn't actually a scorch mark or a skid mark going towards it. But what these are not craters, but intelligent objects, I think. Very large. Now this 2.5 miles across. And there's another one near it, just here, which is a bit smaller. These are domes, these are not craters. What we have here is an intelligent object parked in a crater. Now this is a sort of cratered area here, like a craggy sort of area here, okay? And these are actually sticking up, casting a shadow. You can see the shadow here coming across to here, right? Now unfortunately a lot of this data is missing because it's been cropped, or it was taken in a long strip, and then this is more up to date, and this is probably an older photograph of the surface, which doesn't show us much at all. Very little detail here. But there is enough detail here to determine that this looks like a massive structure with a perfect circle in the middle, with a structure inside that, and this symmetrical looking teardrop shaped thing here. Now, this may not make a lot of sense to you. You've really got to watch the video, which I've got up here, which was called Massive Mars 4-kilometer UFO Structure, Black Saucer Citadel. This done quite a lot of views actually, 87,000. But this was 4 years ago, and a friend of mine in the US, an engineer, actually did a 3D kind of rendition of this, which I'll show you now, which is here. Now, this is what the thing looks like. If you do a rendition of it, it's got a circle here with internal structures, interesting internal structures, and this teardrop kind of shaped structure here. Now, that's not a mountain or a volcano. Volcanoes do not have symmetrical teardrop shaped structures on them. Here's the clip, obviously. It's been brightened up a bit. You can see that teardrop shape. In fact, that is perfectly symmetrical, but the shadow is hiding part of it. It comes around to there, like that. Okay? And this is a teardrop shaped disc. It's not perfectly round. It's actually more. It's almost shaped like a guitar plectrum, where we have a semicircle there, but it comes to more of a point here. Okay, it's not perfectly round. It's a different shape, and that teardrop shaped part here, he's done it. No, he's put this on a sort of background of there were some palm trees in the background for a bit of a laugh, I think. But the scale is totally wrong. This thing is miles across, and that, you know. So, but that's the teardrop shaped part. You can see it coming around there. Okay, really cool. I've been meaning to use this for a while. He did these images for me a year or so ago, and I used a lot of his images. But I kind of knew I would get round to this one day. So thanks to Mike Zertmolder for that, because he's also the guy that did my three-dimensional logo that I use on my videos at the start of the video, which you would have seen, the one with the green lettering and the building. He was the guy who did that on his computer, which is really nice, so thumbs up to him. But there we have it, there's the teardrop shape. So there are massive intelligent structures on the surface of Mars. Not all these things are completely natural, as we have been told. And if there was if you were an alien race going to Mars and wanted to, say, extract water or minerals from the surface or under the surface, the best way to do that would be to build a big saucer-shaped ship or something, a few miles across, with mining equipment and drills inside it, and just land it in a sort of craggy area like this that's already partially exposed and seems to have greenery around it. So this may be being terraformed, this area, and you could just drill down into the surface and extract whatever minerals or material you were looking for. So, well, we're checking out this, and there's lots of other coincidences with this, the way it lines up to other stuff. You've got Tyndall Crater. It's really easy to find. If you just type in Tyndall Crater, spelled Tyndall, and then go directly due east of that, about 160 miles, I think it is. Really easy. Just go straight across, and there it is. You look for the line with the black mark here, and you found it. So there are lots of similar things on Mars, but if you know where and how to look for them, some of them may well be intelligent, like this object here, the Black Saucer Citadel. There are the coordinates. I'll just zoom in a bit so you can see a bit closer. I mean, the image has been downgraded, of course, but there's enough detail here to determine that this is a very strange structure. So let's quickly go back to those other ones, show you them very briefly again. I will be doing some close-ups in a second for you, so they'll be coming up in less than a minute. So there's that one that William Benton just posted on Mars Magazine page. That's really cool. Looks like a huge disc. Really nice. And the other one, the metal object, which looks like a metallic meteor that's come in at a low angle and scorched the ground and ended up right here. And it's a lovely kind of darky metallic blue kind of look to it. So there we are. Thanks for watching, everybody. As I said, please download the app if you want it. You don't have to download it. You can get it on the ArtAlienTV page here at the top. And like I said, if you do download it, please give it the thumbs up on the download page here. Give it some stars and try it out. I mean, there's tons of stuff on here. I mean, if you're a researcher, it will really help you get started and give you all the links you need really to go on all these sites and find the images and stuff like that. Okay, so do check it out. So thanks for watching. Clips coming up now.